Hello, it's Brad Laurie, and speaking on behalf of BlockVera today, we have a very special guest here. It is Sandeep, one of the co-founders of Matic, or the Matic Network. He is here specifically for an update, and this is entirely free. There is no sponsorship. This is free for the people in the name of truth, trust, and transparency. Sandeep, thank you very much for your time today.
Thanks, Brad, for inviting me.
You're very welcome. Now, as I said before, mate, this is all about an update. So we're going to let you take it away. For those who would like to know more about Matic, certainly look into it simply for your own research and for your own understanding. But today it's all about one step beyond that, and that's where we're going to start. So Sandeep, let us know essentially where you're up to in the progression, in the roadmap. What's been happening with Matic of late?
Yeah, so we are currently progressing towards our beta mainnet soon, and which is as per the timelines communicated to the public from our side till now. And in the meanwhile, we are also getting a lot of things audited from third-party code reviewers and all that, so that because we also have a plan to slowly open source everything that we are developing, all the code, and move towards more and more towards a fully decentralized and a fully public project. So once the beta mainnet and a stable mainnet is out, we'll start looping in the public.
Right. Can you talk us through some of the? Sorry to interrupt. Can you talk us through some of the dates more specifically? Now that you're at that beta phase, what are the dates planned for the future as well with regard to moving towards mainnet?
Yeah, so for our beta mainnet, we are targeting somewhere around end of this month or maybe early, in the first 1 or 2 weeks of October. That's the plan from our side, and it's like fairly in line with our timelines. And then from there, we will again keep it in beta. There will be some applications. So there are 2-3 applications that moved on to alpha. Now our plan is to once the beta mainnet is there and there is slight stability, then we'll start moving and asking the teams to migrate to beta mainnet, which would eventually be our final mainnet. So it will be there for like 2-3 months of testing would be there, and then in terms of our staking, we want to announce like we recently announced a pre-staking campaign, which will go with some exchanges, some big exchanges actually. And then from there, we will also announce, or we'll also go into a game of stakes kind of, which is pioneered by Cosmos. And, everybody loves that, the way that they did their staking ecosystem, booting up and testing initially and all that. So we will do something on the similar lines for the testing of our staking on the real mainnet. And then slowly the final staking will go live. So those 3 things are there. And
can I just jump in there for a moment and talk to you about the value of staking? Because I'd love to hear from you, why you've chosen this staking route as well. Obviously, there's a campaign you're going to be putting forward, as you mentioned, with the gaming strategy that Cosmos also assumed. So what's the value proposition of the staking element that you're building into Matic?
Yeah, see, so very in a very layman terms, think of these staking nodes as the validators in the network, right? And what they do is that they have to bring in the transactions that are happening and make them into blocks, and then sign those blocks, verify those blocks, and submit the checkpoint to the mainnet and all that. So all of this initially has a staking reward. Of course, a block reward is there, but then it also has a transaction fees mechanism from there. And the whole thesis is that overall in future, when the number of transactions increase beyond a certain scale, the running of these staking nodes will become more and more profitable. Once it becomes more and more profitable, there will be more and more people who would want to buy the staking nodes and, or maybe, buy the Matic tokens and stake them in the, staking nodes for earning those transaction fees, because it becomes like a, sort of a business model where you earn money to run those nodes, right? So that's the basic thesis about it. So what it does is that this will increase, or this will fuel the demand for the Matic token, and then the locking of those tokens into the network security. And then there will be X small amount of tokens that will be free, which will be used as a gas fees on Matic network, and that will bring in the demand for the circulating,
Supply.
circulating. Yeah,
Right,
circulating.
and what's really
So,
interesting also, Sandeep, in that context is that by introducing this staking aspect, is that surely that also attracts the current participant in the ecosystem, because obviously the metrics are going to be affected in terms of supply, in terms of the amount that's in the circulating sort of the ecosystem, because once again, we can't deny that speculation does exist, but also people do have interest in price appreciation of any of the assets, those digital assets in the space. So is it fair to say that in the future, through this addition of staking, that it's certainly going to likely capture the attention of many people in the space who've been supporters of Matic?
yeah, of course. And then it also, results in the more stability and growth of the overall token demand in the market. So of course, it's a very highly looked for event for Matic token, and the Matic community holders.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I mean, this is one of the important elements in the roadmap of Matic.
Absolutely. Absolutely, because obviously that's a big feature, the staking one, for your current updates. What about with regard to tech? Now, you're certainly well versed in that area, and many of your teams certainly are as the core engineers. But what are some of the fundamental tech updates that align with some of these changes that you've made, Sandeep, with regard to technological updates to really strengthen the quality of your technology?
One of the biggest strength I would say, and I've always been saying, is our user experience and developer experience. We generally don't talk about too much about the how the plasma is, and how we are doing some cutting edge part in that and this and that, because those kind of things are generally not, first, they are not relatable to the the overall community.
Mm-hmm.
Second, the thing is that no matter how big a technical win castle you are building, if it's not getting adoption, it's not usable, right? And so that's why we don't speak more about that. So I want to speak more about the non-technical and business value elements of Matic Network, which are, one is of course, we talked about the token design and the token economics and all that. The second is the user experience, and the third one, and the biggest one, is the developer experience. And due to that developer experience, user experience, everybody knows what we are trying to do, but developer experience is that it's very easy and worthwhile for the developers to develop on Matic. It's very easy. They can very easily do these have the migrations, or not migration, like plug and play usage of Matic staking or Matic scalability platform into their existing applications without making too much of changes in their code. And that's why I generally quote what Joey Krug from Pantera Capital said in one of the podcasts. He said that he was asked that which platforms he thinks are the best platform for scalability, and he said that two of them, he likes three of them, and two of them are his portfolio, one is not, and the one that is not in his portfolio but he was still talking about it is the Matic Network. And he said that the biggest benefit over there is basically the ease of a development part. And he said that, and to quote him, he said that if you go to a developer and say that, hey, you can scale your application with my platform, but inherently it is going to take you like 3 to 6 months to migrate and do all of that stuff, no developer is going to use that. But with Matic Network, if you are able to do the same kind of thing for many applications, it's a matter of minutes. For some applications, it can be a matter of 1 or 2 days, max 1 week for any application.
Right.
And if you are able to do that, then there is a big chance. And that's why we are getting a lot of attention. I've spoken on
absolutely. And Sandeep, I want to talk more about that in terms of empirical proof. Now, obviously, we don't have any of those developers online with us now, but is there any means or any feedback you can give us to reassure us that empirically there's evidence to suggest that there is that developer uptake, given that you are an agnostic protocol by design, and you're essentially trying to help scale layer 1 blockchains, and you're very much focused on, as you mentioned, key blockchains such as Ethereum and moving on to Cosmos and others to really facilitate this uptake. how can we be assured that there is that connection with the developers and that they are indeed really satisfied with the Matic technology?
Yeah, so I think the biggest this thing is that one, we have, like, although only 2 applications have moved to alpha mainnet, because the beta is coming in short time now, so they are all waiting for directly to go into the beta mainnet. But then all of those team and combined joint sort of announcement that we have done on the platform, they have been done in conjunction with the team. So all those teams also have to protect their reputation, right? So they would not announce something which they don't intend to do. So empirically, there would be at least 10 to 15 such announcements that we have made, and we are now building a dashboard also, which will have the names of all the projects which are going to use Matic network in some form, and for their scalability needs and all that. So we are going to build that dashboard, which will be available for public. And once the beta mainnet is live, I think, which is not very far away, in 1 or 2 months from here, you'll start seeing many of these applications. Then our narrative also changes. So rather than talking about these applications who have announced, our narrative will also move into the DAUs and daily transactions and this and that, of course.
I see.
And yeah.
And you'll also have more proof as well as
exactly.
you start to essentially move into demonstrations of what you've already built as per the roadmap. Now, with regard to the open source technology, you mentioned that incrementally you're going to release more of this. So is there a roadmap that's clear about the release of information as well, Sandeep? The release of the code more so that people who are developers, for example, can access this more readily as they start to engage with the code?
Yeah, exactly. And then that will, I will not call it proof, because we are a public company and very well reputed in this. But I'll say that people will start seeing the ground action, and that's what I am also like waiting for those days when people can actually, in all of these talks, we can actually show those apps running. Which in many of those talks we do, but now running those dApps running on the mainnet, and then people talking about Matic on all these social platforms and all that, talking about those apps and playing with them, or using them in some form and then posting it there. So that's what we want to achieve, because our ideal platform is like Ethereum, right? So, and which has currently the biggest usage in the space. So that's our goal also.
Absolutely. Now, I did want to touch on one thing, because you being based in India for much of the year, I would imagine you'd be certainly aware of some of the blockchain bans that are happening internationally and India itself. So I wanted to ask you specifically on that, given that there's a bit of a situation that's arisen in the recent past with regard to government actions. Are you concerned at all about some of the positions that some governments, including India, are taking with regard to cryptocurrency?
Yeah, so I'm not really worried about that. So as I've already mentioned multiple times that, one Matic network, token entities and anything related to crypto is not based out of India. Indian entity is simply a technology research firm, right? So first is that we are completely immune from the crypto things in India. The second thing is that I don't think that India will pass any draconian laws. All the things that you think that or people talk about that ban in India and all that are rumors spread by people, just for the sensationalization of news and all that. And sometimes people also suspect manipulation in that. Whatever draft people have talked in the past, it actually, government themselves have said that, that's just a draft by one of the committees and it doesn't mean anything. And then actually the person who prepared that draft got fired from the government. So,
I see. Well, thank you so much for clarifying that, because I certainly didn't know that, and I appreciate that from you.
Yeah, and then now the new the other authorities, some of the authorities said that like the cryptocurrency and blockchain have taken the fintech innovation to a next level. These kind of statements are also coming, and I am also hearing from the chitter chatter here is that the actual official draft that is going to come will be much more balanced and business centric, and rather than being something draconian and all that, because in India it cannot be done, like even if it happens in the short run, like for example, like sometimes back the Supreme Court of India, I think, passed a very kind of a one-sided ruling on LGBT community, right? So they sort of tried to ban something and all that, but India is a full-blown democracy. I think one of the most open democracies worldwide. People filed petitions against it and this and that, and 2 days back they won, and then now the LGBT and gay marriages all are now approved and
Right.
banned in India, because our judiciary is the final bedrock of our democracy, and then that judiciary and the Constitution of India will not allow any of these draconian kind of things to be
yes. And what's interesting also, just to interrupt for a moment, is that obviously the technology itself is in that environment is very prominent. I mean, you're in one of the most pro-tech environments globally, so it only makes sense that it would have merged into that sort of pro-blockchain narrative. So with regard to that, we can certainly quash any rumours there, so thanks for that. Now, with regard to business, as a final point for this update, because I wanted to try and keep it brief for you today because you are busy, is what can you tell us specifically in the area of business, whether that be partnerships, whether that be things forging, partnerships you're forging without trying to create FOMO, but really, truly and authentically the legitimate partnerships that you're making that help better business for Matic and obviously the related party.
Yep. So if you also judge by and go by our announcements, most of the announcements, barring one or two, are mostly focused on the action where either Matic is going to use some technology for the benefit of the Matic network, or somebody is going to use Matic network as a as a technology for their payments and transfers and this and that. So that eventually means adoption. So as I would say that if you go to 50%, like not 50, like almost 90% of our announcements, either you will find that there will be a direct connection to the Matic ecosystem, either in the form of adoption or in terms of technical advancement. So we don't do like. I generally keep joking that partnership is the second most abused terms in this space.
Right.
First one would be the scam. Everything is a scam, right? And then similarly, partnership is like anything and everything can be called a partnership, and then people make it to gather some attention.
Yeah, it's a huge problem. But that's why I try to ask you to verify and let us know more about it.
You're right. And I'm like, I would say that one or two partnerships that we had to do because of our overall business relationships and all. So those are not immediate development related partnerships, but they are expected to be, those developments are expected to be in future, but we still had to announce them. But then, most of the other announcements that we make are on the ground, this thing. Like, for example, the constant announcement that we yesterday made, that product is already live using Matic network, right? So next announcement we made, that product is again live. Matic has a chat engine, chat channel over there, and then they are going to use Matic for their, payment disbursals in ERC20 tokens.
Right.
So, almost all the announcement that you see from our side, you would see that they have something related to the value accrual of Matic, Matic network in terms of its entirety.
Sure. So, and just one final question for you, Sandeep, obviously, because you are busy. I wanted to talk more about the utility token itself with respect to its, initiation. You went through that very successful process of launching on the Binance Launchpad. You then, went through the trials and tribulations of being in the marketplace, being in that primary market. But now I wanted to ask you more so about your viewpoint on the terminology of utility, in the sense that you've already articulated that you're certainly driving your team to build out what is essentially a robust system that is underpinned by utility. So can you talk us through whether or not the kind of confidence you have in the authenticity of a utility token to achieve what you're planning to do?
Yep. So, see, I mean, if you also see, let's try to prove it by contradiction, right? So essentially, a security offering is something where a central party is doing all the efforts, and all the people who are buying that security are trying to speculate on that, on the movement of value accrual of that security. Right. Compare that with the utility, like those like the central party handling all the things of a particular security is not or cannot be a part of utility, right? So the FinCEN in the past came out with a very good paper, and then they, projected this security versus utility in a spectrum. And they they gave an example of Ethereum that when it started, it was like a security bet, but over time, by decentralizing, open sourcing, and now anybody can participate in the Ethereum network, and then the foundation doesn't hold a large number of tokens or whatever, and then most of the network is now decentralized. Now Ethereum is a full utility. So I think it's the same for all the platforms that are being built, where they have a utility token. It it may start as a not a fully security, but somewhere in the purview of a security. But slowly, once the network gets decentralized, the whole network gets to participate on that on the network in order to overall value accrual or growth of that utility. That makes it more of a utility, unlike the security, which for which the value accrual depends on one central party.
Yes, and Sandeep, thank you so much for your transparency there, because essentially, the SEC and the CFTC really showed through their assessment of Ethereum that they gave an affordance, a time period in which it was able to make the switch, because essentially at the beginning, the crowdfunding mechanism, I often call it a pre-utility phase as opposed to security, because the interest from right from the outset was also supporting that utility potential. And you're saying as they bridge that gap and achieve that, that's the real excitement. So are you bullish on utility tokens is what I want to get at, because when you add the new addition of staking,
for networks,
yes, for networks like yours, for example.
For networks, I am like, I am like 100% sure that, many of these utilities will evolve just like Ethereum and Bitcoin. Overall, they will evolve into full-blown utilities. And then with the other kind of, let's say, application-specific, tokens and all that, for them, there's a large possibility that many of those will remain, or not be like full-blown utilities. But then there are evolving, like, human innovation is like just incredible, right? So I have reviewed some of the token models, like, for example, a team Axie Infinity is coming up with their, environment token, which is the gaming environment and all. And they have done quite a lot of good work on the utility. And that gave me a hope that, maybe the application or application protocol, engines can actually create pure utilities by creating these innovative models. So I think that can be one good example. And then, we all are waiting for, or somebody to come out with a utility model which can be applicable to these applications and application protocols also, not only the network protocols. So that's what I feel, that there will be emergent models in future, some way or the other, where utility tokens could be used there. But on a strategic level, many of those applications which are building those tokens just for the payment sake, I think that's not the right way to create your own currency in your own microcosm.
I totally agree. I absolutely agree with you.
A speculative token.
Absolutely. And it's exciting. Sure. And it's exciting that you distinguish between the network utility driver and also those of the applications that onboard onto ecosystems. So obviously there are distinctions and different intentions built in, but you are right, I think, in that if it's just solely a payment system or a settlement system, it's really not going to cut it, because that doesn't clarify, doesn't evidence, empirically the value of utility itself. Sandeep, obviously you are busy. I wanted to ask you just finally, is there anything with regard to the current updates that we have missed that you wanted to really articulate now as a final statement for those who have just simply wanted a Matic update for this period in time?
Yeah, so I mean, I would just like to summarize it that our mainnet is very close by, and then the staking kind of environment is coming. So a lot of good and exciting things about Matic are coming. And once all of this background preparation, I call this staking and this mainnet and all that, is background preparation on getting started on our actual promise, right? So our actual promise was not that we'll bring a mainnet and we'll have a staking, right? Our actual promise is that we'll bring the adoption here, and we will subvert the paradigm here in which is currently evident in the space, that there's not scalability. The scalability is not there, and the dApps are not like becoming or picking up user adoption. So that is our promise, and all of these things will take us to the point where we'll be able to get started really in terms of the adoption. And that's what I'm looking for in the next 2-3 months, whenever we have a stable like mainnet and everything. From that point on, I think the mission is to bring each and everything on the Ethereum plus Matic kind of framework, all the applications on Ethereum plus Matic kind of of ecosystem. That's the whole mission of the whole team.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Right. Well, Sandeep, thank you so much for your time for this very quick update. I do appreciate it. And know, once again, you are very busy building this out. You are always very much centered around the technology, but very much business savvy when it comes to enabling us to have an insight into the developments. That is fundamental for us to really valorize crypto as an ecosystem. For this to really flourish and be meaningful, even for exchanges, for example, there needs to be more than just a conversation of one coin. And as you alluded to, it's the confidence in the potential of these things to scale. You're part, literally, of that technology enabling that, and I wish you all the very best, because we certainly need empirical evidence that the scaling is there and it's building, so that we can see more of the network effects of networks, and we can also see apps coming on board with confidence in mind that this is all real and doable. So thank you again for restoring some of that confidence in perhaps myself and others, and hopefully we can also catch up when post mainnet, for example, when there's more updates to discuss.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And I really love talking to you, and because yours is one of the most true and transparent platform and channel in the crypto space. It's really great work that you're doing, and also I'm really big fan of your overall utility versus security theory. Even I was actually going to ask you that you should write a blog post or a series of blog posts on that, and consolidate all your thoughts, because I've always loved talking to you on those utility versus security kind of this thing, and how utilities can evolve and all that.
Right.
I think that you should enlighten everyone.
I would love to, actually, so I'll give it a go. I've been considering trying to find time to write, so you've inspired me, Sandeep, and I'll give it a crack, and I'll even send it to you so you can have a look. But for now,
definitely
wish you very much all the best as you move really to showcase your utility, mate, because quite frankly, I'm really excited about seeing proof of utility. It's something that I'm really passionate about trying to espouse and support, and you certainly are part of a team that's driving this forward for the future and changing the paradigm of not just money, but also how business can be done on the blockchain. So keep going, mate. Don't give up, and I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Brad.
You're welcome.
Inviting me.
See you, mate.